have a very interactive session today. And secondly, today the prayer recitation will lead by our Geshe Dorji Damdul. So I request David to kindly screen share the prayer recitation, please. And thank you everyone for joining.
Okay, venerable monks and nuns, Sahala, Davidla, Leorala, and all the participants are setting a proper motivation. It's a great opportunity for us that we are being together for a greater purpose, for a greater meaning of life. And for sure, many of us, we do our own Dharma practices separately by oneself, and collectively, again, we can do it slightly differently. And let us take this as opportunity for us to reflect, us to set a proper motivation that whatever we do together is of greatest purpose and meaning. So with this in mind, and let's visualize the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, particularly Buddha Shakyamuni, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and Ara Manjushri, Ara Avalokiteshvara, Ara Vajrapani, Ara Tara, Ara Maitreya, and Ara Nagarjuna, Ara Deva, and Acharya Chandrakirti, Bodhisattva Shantideva, the author of this text, and Bodhisattva Shantarakshita, Acharya Kamalashio, and then the 11th century the great Indonesian master Lama Siling, and again 11th century great teacher Lama Adisha, and all the great teachers of the Sakya tradition, Nyingma tradition, Kagyu tradition, and Gelug tradition, and also from the other traditions like the Theravada tradition and the Chinese tradition. In other words, all the enlightened beings who embody the great compassion of bodhicitta and the wisdom of emptiness, and so loving and caring and embracing. And for the bodhicitta field, visualize your two parents on the two sides. And you may have difficulty with the parents, it doesn't matter. So the fact that the two persons are having difficulty is all because of being very childish, like small children. So now we are trying to transcend the childishness, how to transcend the ordinariness. So we're going to embrace everyone. And the best example that we can think of is when each one of us, when we are so young, age 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, when we are so tender, vulnerable, and all your two parents are there to just embrace you with total love and affection. That's the best example of manifesting, igniting this state of compassion within each one of us. So the two parents are on your two sides, and all your family members, including your children, and all other dear sentient beings living on the side. And here you are like a mother, and all others are like children. As long as somebody's in the dream and being sucked up by the dream and being affected by the dream, they're so helpless, and we are trying to wake up from the sleep of ignorance, come out of the dream, and that we be free to not being affected by the dream at all. And we are trying to help all the beings. So with this mind, you are so loving, caring, and embracing to each and every dear mother sentient being. And the purpose of this practice is to awaken this incredibly precious gem within you, the seed of perfection, unraveling of which will manifest in the form of perfect love, perfect knowledge, and perfect power, through which you can best benefit yourself and be able to best benefit other dimension beings. And how to unravel this is by removing the mental dirt which obstructs this incredible treasure. And to get rid of this metal dirt, we need to know the nature of the dirt. The nature of the dirt is of two kinds, the gross and the subtle. The gross obstructing you, or the gross attracting all the fears of life. And the gross defilements take the form of contaminated karmas, afflictions, and the active seeds, all rooted to this self-grasping ignorance when complemented by this self-centered attitude. And the subtle cognitive obscurations, the subtle stains of the mind, the subtle defilements, the presence of this blocks us from achieving infinite happiness. And there is like the smell of garlic. After you remove all the solid garlic, it still smells garlic. That is the cognitive obscurations. To remove these two, the remedy only lies in the wisdom of emptiness, which we are trying to learn here, study, reflect, and meditate. So just setting the motivation, the purpose of this practice to awaken the seed of the wisdom of emptiness for myself and for all other beings with the extremely pure motivation, bodhicitta, grounded on renunciation. With this mind, imagine that you are leading this prayer and the reflections, and all the beings are joining you, including your two parents, and all sentient beings are joining you in this recitation and the reflection and activating the Buddha nature within. And teach by great compassion. You taught the immaculate Dharma to dispel all perverted views. To you, the Buddha Gautama, I pay homage. And teach by great compassion. You taught the immaculate Dharma to dispel all perverted views. To you, the Buddha Gautama, I pay homage. And teach by great compassion. You taught the immaculate Dharma to dispel all perverted views. To you, the Buddha Gautama, I pay homage. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By my accumulations of the practice of giving and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By my accumulations of the practice of giving and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By my accumulations of the practice of giving and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I will recite the same thing in Tibetan, one which is just ahead of that. Sanje joda zoge jonam lo chanju bardo dane gyapsu che dage jinso kebe tsonam ge chola penjere sanje jubare sho sanje joda zoge jonam lo chanju bardo dane gyapsu che dage jinso kebe tsonam ge chola penjere sanje jubare sho sanje joda zoge jonam lo Chanjo bardo dane gyabzo che dage jinso gebe tsonamge drola benjere sanje drubare sho. Independent origination. There is no ceasing, no arising, no annihilation, no permanence, no coming, no going, no separateness and no sameness. I prostrate to the consummate Buddha, the supreme among all teachers, the one who taught this peace, which is free of elaborations. Okay, the David Love will go down. Yes, the next one. The next one, the one who has transformed into the reliable guide, motivated by altruism to benefit sentient beings, the teacher, Sugata, protector to your manifestations, the one who has eliminated the web of conceptualizations and is endowed with the divine bodies of the vast and the profound, who eternally shines for the forever noble life raised to you, the Buddha, manifestations. Inspired by wisdom and compassion, today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mode of full awakening for the benefit of sentient beings. Om ye dharma hetu prabhava hetum tesham tathagato hyavatat tesham chayo nirodha evam vati mahashramanaye swaha. Om ye dharma hetu prabhava hetum tesham tathagato hyavatat tesham chayo niroda evam vati mahashramanaye swaha. Om ye dharma hetu prabhavam hetum tesham tathagato hyavatat tesham chayo niroda evam vati mahashramanaye swaha. Meaning of the mantra. All phenomena arise from causes. The causes are taught by the Tathagata. The cessation of the causes as well is taught by the great seer. Profound, peaceful, elaboration-free, clear-light and non-composite. Such is the nectar-like Dharma I have discovered. Finding no one who can fathom this teaching, in silence I will recite these words. Beyond our trends, thought and expression is the perfection of wisdom, which is unborn, unceased, and has the initial space. It is the object of apprehension of self-realized wisdom. To you, the mother of the Buddhas of the three times, I be obeisance. All composite things are impermanent. All contaminated things are of the nature of suffering. All phenomena are of the nature of emptiness and selflessness. Transcending soul is peace. The Guru is the Buddha, the Guru is the Dharma, likewise the Guru is the Sangha. The Guru is the source of everything wholesome. I go for refuge in the Guru. By the sound of vibrant drum of Dharma, you liberate all beings of miseries. I beseech you to kindly remain and give teachings until the end of the expanse of billions of aeons. The next page. The Buddha does not watch the negativities of beings, nor does he remove their miseries by his hands. His spiritual realization has not transferred them. It is by teaching the truth of suchness that the beings are liberated. With folded hands, I beseech the Buddhas of all directions to shine the light of Dharma for all bewildered miseries gloom. If you are attached to this life, you are not a spiritual practitioner. If you are attached to samsara, you have no renunciation. If you are attached to your own self-interest, you have no bodhicitta. If there's grasping, you do not have the view. Okay, Harsut mantra. Okay, as we recite Harsut, this is a very the precious mantra, and let's all visualize that we are there in the vultures on the vulture's peak, with the Buddha Shakyamuni presiding over the congregation, with the Aravalokiteshvara and Sharipur on the two sides, and you are there, and all the dear Matsunjimans are there. And imagine that this is what the Buddha Shakyamuni is exhorting us. Don't remain in the fears of samsara. Come towards the ultimate happiness. And you hearing this, what the Buddha is taught, the teaching, and you inform this to all the beings. Let us not remain in fears of samsara, fear of COVID-19 and so forth. Let us all go towards the ultimate happiness. And all the beings, disillusioned by all the miseries of samsara, hearing what you are saying, they are so happy. They are so pleased, they are so happy, and they join you in this recitation of the mantra to follow this journey of cleansing the mind, to awaken this to the Buddha nature within themselves, to get rid of all the fears of life, and to have the infinite happiness for themselves and to all the beings. Om Gati Gati Paragati Parasam Gati Bodhisvatyata Om Gati Gati Paragati Parasam Gati Bodhisvatyata Om Gati Gati Paragati Parasam Gati Bodhisvatyata Om Gati Gati Paragati Parasamgati Bodhiswatyatha Om Gati Gati Paragati Parasamgati Bodhiswaha. Okay. Going back to the text, which is on page, the stanza 40, stanza 40. Okay, just for information, since that this text is quite a huge text, and then as for the audience, I can see is a mixture of the mix of the audience who are exposed to the concept of emptiness, and most like I'm not too sure about others. Some of you may be just new to this concept, because of which that I cannot really rush through. And then the purpose for the Dhamma Friends of Israel to organize this teaching purpose will be defeated if I really rush through, because there are for sure some of you who are new to this concept. And it's very important. The whole purpose of this is to help everybody. So with this in mind, I meant to talk to Shahala separately, but then now there's no harm in the informing this to the group. The Shahala, you decide that instead of rushing through, we have now 4 sessions, today 2 sessions, tomorrow 2 sessions, and of course we can't expect to complete everything. And so what you do is that let's say we can leave half of the text to be done at a later stage, not too far away in time, but there's a possibility there to do it. In other words, tomorrow 2 sessions, tomorrow is going to be the last day for this course, and then we can do another course whenever Ashala and the team thinks the right time for us. And of course, we have to adjust with the Tibet House program also. Okay, this is what I would like to share with you. Okay, because this topic is very important, and this text is also very important, and yeah. So why do we have to rush through? And we negotiate the precious teachings of this text. Okay, inshallah, just let me know before tomorrow what's the possibility. I say if, and then the possibility is much slim, then we have to somehow conclude by tomorrow. If not, then we can keep the part, whichever we could not complete, for the next time. Okay. The session that we're doing now is establishing that the wisdom of emptiness is ultimately the true path to liberation. And if we, from the example that we have learned from the earlier sessions of being in a dream, and the dream, there are 2 kinds. Okay, say overall speaking, 3 kinds: a pleasant dream, unpleasant dream, and neutral dream. And let's say the unpleasant dream signifies the suffering of the 2 kinds of suffering, the suffering, and the pleasant dreams signify the suffering change, and the neutral dream symbolize the pervasive conditioned suffering. And the fact that we have all learned that although it's an extremely pleasant dream, at times it can be a very virtuous dream, not only pleasant, but a very virtuous dream, still there's a problem there. The fact that you are in the dream means the dream is affecting you, and you don't have the freedom to choose the dream. That's a problem with the dream. You don't have the freedom to choose the dream. And because of this, you have loss of freedom, and loss of freedom, misery. So finally, aspiration that we have is that may I be freed from all the miseries, may I be freed from all the lack of freedom. That is the initial, the motivation for us to engage into dharma, that I be freed from miseries, that I be freed from the fears. The fear meaning that I don't have this freedom, and then what is going to happen next, I don't know. And then it's a very pleasant dream, but the next moment it can be a nightmare. We never know. So we see that we don't have the freedom to choose this dream. If you can understand this, that even the most pleasant and virtuous dream, even that, the problem is that I'm being sucked up by the dream, that I believe in the dream to be real, and then the dream affects me. Okay, if you understand this, and then later, if you understand a little bit of emptiness, and if you're able to apply this example to the understanding of emptiness versus seeing things objectively real, then your understanding of renunciation can become very pure. Till that point, yes, okay, I'm fed up with samsara, I'm fed up with the mundane world. Okay, this is very good. And then I want to go into dharma. I want throughout my future lifetimes, always encounter with the dharma, so that eventually I'll be free from suffering. Okay, that's good. That is a form of renunciation. But the final sense of renunciation is when you have a very clear picture as to how one can potentially be freed from all forms of vulnerabilities, freed from all forms of loss of freedom, that I gain total freedom, where I am not being affected by the dreams at all, that I come out of the dream, and stay in this experience where you come out of the dream in emptiness experience, where the dream contents conventional truth does not affect you in any way. So that understanding is understanding of nirvana, and aspiration to attain that state is the renunciation. This is the ultimate understanding of renunciation in the experience of the emptiness, where all the freedom, all the loss of freedom disappears. So that is the final understanding of the renunciation. Then the having understood this, we see that with the example, we see that finally, how should I be freed from the loss of freedom? Loss of freedom, not just unpleasant dream, but the loss of freedom. Loss of freedom meaning that I don't have the freedom to choose the dream. Wake up. So waking up is to see the reality that the dream is dream. Dream is not real. The dream is empty of being real. That realization should happen. So this is the only way. If you are really to be freed from the dreams, being sucked up in the dream, then the only way by which to get out of this vulnerability of being sucked up in the dream is to wake up. So waking up is the metaphor for understanding emptiness. So it says, establishing that the wisdom of emptiness is ultimately the true path to liberation. So we see that, for example, being compassionate and staying away from doing harmful things and so forth. We have all forms of, say, the 6 perfections, 10 perfections, and all these practices are there. On all these practices, the Buddha very clearly indicated that the wisdom of emptiness alone is the liberating path, and all others are the ripening paths. And ripening paths meaning all others are the factors or the paths to ripen, to enrich, to make this wisdom of emptiness grow. Finally, what liberates us is the waking up. That is the wisdom of emptiness. So therefore, the study of emptiness is so precious. No matter what samadhis that you practice, they are very precious, but don't expect that this samadhi alone will take you to Buddhahood. Never. Forget about Buddhahood, even nirvana. In fact, the Buddha's two teachers, the two teachers of the Buddha, from whom the Buddha received the teachings, and finally, Buddha, he sought his own path. So these two teachers already have reached the highest of the uddrika. the Udreka, the second teacher, already reached the highest mundane meditative state. And yet he's still in samsara because it is like a very pleasant dream because of this training in this samadhi, training in the meditative concentration. They could ignite the very peaceful mind, but that is still happening in the dream. So till you wake up, you are not freed from the dream. So therefore, even these meditative samadhis, they are very precious. Not only the something common to the non-Buddhists. Even within Buddhism, there are very sophisticated samadhi practices, like say the experience of the awareness itself, experience of the awareness meditation. Just being too aware, and this awareness really be manifested in its the true luminous state. So still there's half story, because that's still a part of the dream. So you have to see the emptiness of this luminous state of the mind, which one awakens. So this is so important for us, to the wisdom of emptiness. Okay, so with this in mind, then the wisdom of emptiness. Once you know that the wisdom of emptiness, with example, you're convinced that okay, yes. Oh, okay. Example will help us, number one. Then number two is to get a glimpse of emptiness. Once you get a glimpse of emptiness, you'll realize that without this emptiness experience, then the liberation is not possible. Okay, this is what happens. So say okay, so these two things, example will be great helpful, and the other one is the experience, a tinge of experience, a glimpse of experience emptiness will give you the confidence. Otherwise, we all follow, like, say somebody else says, okay, this is ultimate, and then everybody's saying that this is ultimate, this will take to Buddhahood, this will take to Buddhahood, and then you will not have a real clue as to which is the correct one. The point is that but it doesn't mean that you have the wisdom emptiness and then everything is there. This is not this is not true. We need just like a good, say, a good meal. We need all the ingredients. Likewise, say the one that we should have this, the direction, proper direction, or to cut this poison straight, to remove the mental defilement. One is that we need to have the actual acts. That is wisdom. That's required. Then number two is that this act should be used by a person who has a very strong arm. There's a bodhicitta. Without the bodhicitta, impossible. Whatever practice that you do, even the wisdom of emptiness, lacking bodhicitta will not take you to Buddhahood. This is one. Then you have to, in order to have this very strong, say the hand, you should have this sense of commitment. There is a renunciation that is required. And then even this wisdom, we see that this wisdom is of two kinds. One which is the gross mind, and the other the subtle mind, a subtle mind. So the wisdom manifesting in the form of gross mind, wisdom manifesting in the form of subtle mind. Subtle mind meaning the clear-eyed mind. So again, the clear-eyed has to be activated. Clear-eyed mind has to be activated. The wisdom has to be deactivated. Bodhicitta, the motivation bodhicitta is required, and the foundation with the renunciation is required. All these things are required. So simply by saying that bodhicitta alone will take you to Buddhahood, this is also not true. Wisdom and emptiness will take you to Buddhahood, this is not true. And then activating the clear light inside, this will take you to the Buddhahood, this is also not true. Then the renunciation will just, breathing exercise will, breathing meditation will take you to Buddhahood, not true. So all are required together. So this is so important to have. Finally, the Buddha said that you are the master of yourself. Who else is there as your master? Finally, what we want is, we want to get rid of all the miseries, and we want the maximum happiness. So if that is what we are seeking, then these four ingredients are required. Okay. So historically speaking now, historically speaking, what happened was that the Buddha, at the time of Buddha, the Buddha gave lots of teachings, and the Buddha's teachings are primarily on the basis of the demands of the audience. And the audience, what they request, or what the Buddha knows the temperaments, the mindset of the audience. So with this, the majority of the audience, of course, naturally, people go to Buddha and ask, Buddha, please teach us something. Please teach me something. Or I have a family problem. I have a health issue. I have this problem, that problem, or my community has a problem. So of these, we see the majority of the people, they ask something for myself, for me. And less number of people ask, please help my community. So those people who seek the advice of the Buddha or request teachings of Buddha, for myself, for them, the Buddha taught the teachings of the personal liberation. And those who talk about, those who made the request to the Buddha, please, this is a problem that our community has. Please give us the guidance to the community, for the community. So for them, the Buddha taught the minor teachings, teaching for Buddhahood. So we see that the Buddha's teachings can be classified into two groups, one for the majority of the people and the other for the less number of people who think about the larger interest. So one is known as the teaching for the personal liberations, and the other for personal liberation seekers, and the other for the minor practitioners too. And naturally, the first one outnumbers the second one. First one, which is that teachings meant to deliver the individual or give rise to personal liberation, outnumbers the teachings given to the beings, the bodhisattvas, the beings who seek liberation for all beings. And because of this, the tendency is that this teaching, this sort of the teaching for all beings, minor part. So these teachings, there's a danger that it can easily disappear from the world. So because of which, at the time of Buddha, I think it was Ananda who asked the Buddha that this teaching is something so precious. This teaching to help all the beings, not just personal liberation, to lead somebody to personal liberation, but to help all beings. The Bodhisattva, the minor teaching is so precious. And the what prospect did Tathagata see that this teaching will survive? And how will it survive? Because Lucy, majority of the people, they seek personal liberations. So what's the prospect that this teaching will survive? Then the Buddha made the prophecy of Aranyaka. Okay, so the point is that then this was what was potentially the danger since the time of the Buddha, that this sect, this group of the teaching, the class of the teaching, the minor teaching, can easily disappear from this earth. And that's true. So nowadays, for example, say the very sophisticated teachings, the Aranyaka's works like emptiness, Mula Madhyamika Karika, and so forth. So these, say, in many universities where there's a Buddhist studies department there, and it is lucky that if these departments, they would have the mention of Aranyaka's Mula Madhyamika Karika. Okay, keeping aside, forget about them actually studying this text, Aranyaka's Mula Madhyamika Karika. Even if the mention is there, even that is amazing. So the point is that there's every danger that this very profound teaching can disappear from this earth. So now, true to the situation which arose, which the Ananda brought to the Buddha, then the Buddha assumed Mahaparinirvana, and later on, at the time of Aranyaka, which was, there were different dates. Some say it's like after the 100 years after Buddha Shakyamuni, some say about after like, say the 500 years, doesn't matter. So at the time of Aranyaka, then the complication actually happened, that the teaching which Aranyaka retrieved, minor teachings, they were being debated by the majority, the teaching which actually prevailed. teachings meant for the personal liberation. So the advocates of these teachings, or the practitioners of these teachings, followers of these the teachings meant for personal liberation, so they started to debate against the authenticity of the teachings, the Mahayana teachings. So this was a very prevalent debate over the centuries, saying that so this class of teaching, which were retrieved by Aranigarjuna, they were actually not the authentic teachings of the Buddha. And only if you are wise people, they will not really, say that, okay, this is not the teaching, this is who said it? No, they will study it. They'll study it. They'll study it thoroughly, and to see that without the wisdom as taught by Aranigarjuna, whether or not one can achieve liberation. If you cannot, without the wisdom of emptiness as taught by Aranigarjuna, if there's no way by which you can achieve the enlightenment, forget about Buddhahood, even enlightenment in the context of nirvana, then we can for sure say that this teaching is so precious. And if there's a purpose for the Buddha Shakyamuni to appear on this earth to liberate all beings, it should be this teaching. So our intelligent people, there's no problem for intelligent people. They study this, and they, through, as I said earlier, example may not necessarily give you full confidence, but a glimpse of emptiness will give you full confidence. That is it. If this is not taught by the Buddha, then what the Buddha taught does not really have the, keeping aside this, if you take this aside, then what the Buddha taught, it cannot really liberate you to Buddhahood or to nirvana. So this must be the main feature of the Buddha's teaching. You will gain the conviction in yourself. Okay, so these debates were there, and it is and His Holiness that is very precious. His Holiness the Dalai Lama, he's as early as when he was in his perhaps like late 20s, coming to India, he started to the bridge the Mahayana practitioners and the Theravada practitioners, bridge the two. He deliberately attempted to bring all the followers of the Buddha from any tradition to come together, to convene conferences, and still this is an ongoing endeavor. It's a very successful endeavor for the last many years, since he was in his 20s. So before that, the climax was not really too healthy, because the Mahayana practitioners, they have the air that, okay, we are Mahayana, they are Hinayana. Hinayana meaning small vehicle. And they share air of superiority. And then the Theravada followers, they said that you are not a Buddhist in the first place. Forget about Mahayana, whatever. You are not a Buddhist in the first place. This is not teaching of the Buddha. So this is just unnecessary rift happening since the time of Aranigarjuna. So all these debates are happening now. We are so lucky that there is His Holiness the Dalai Lama, who is bringing all the students of the Buddha Shakyamuni together in the same platform to understand each other and find the purpose is not to show who's superior, who's inferior. The purpose is okay. Can you hear me? There's some technical issue here.
We can hear you well, Geshe. Yeah, we can hear you well. Geshe.
Okay. Okay, so I'll continue. So the screen here, blackout. Okay, so we are very fortunate that we have His Holiness the Dalai Lama to bring all the followers of the Buddha together and to learn from each other. This is so precious, but at the same time, we have to keep in mind that these debates were happening, and these should not be the reason for us to feel that, okay, the sectarianism should be encouraged. No, not at all. And so seeing these debates, and then finally, not to forget two things. One is that that it is for my own freedom from suffering, and for the infinite happiness, and to embrace all the sentient beings. So for that purpose, and of course, nobler the goal, more the obstacles, more the complications are there. So we should be courageous enough, we should be wise enough to transcend all the complications. And of course, there's a reason why the people who are the advocates of the personal liberation, so there's a reason for them not to feel that this, what is technically referred to as the minor teachings, they are not the authentic teachings of Buddha, because for them this teaching, this set of teaching is seen as nihilistic. And in fact, it's very true. We can really understand it, that even amongst today's modern scholars, there are many who describe Nagarjuna's philosophy as idealistic. Of course, it's a clear indication of the person's inability to fathom the depth of this teaching. So the point is that we have to know these debates, and knowing these debates should in fact encourage us to see the wonder of Nagarjuna's philosophy, and then on that basis to see the wonder of the Buddha's teachings. And that should make you like the matured mother to take care of all the children who are fighting. That is the spirit that we need to cultivate after studying this. Okay, so quickly stanza, and then this text was written in 8th century AD, and Nagarjuna was in in some sources referred to as BC, before the Christ, and some say it's the 1st century AD, some say 2nd century. It doesn't matter. It's way earlier than Bodhisattva Shantidev's text. So this debate was just ongoing debate, and yes, on the one hand, this debate not for the sake of debate, but it's very important for us, because in order to simply be diplomatic and to say that, okay, no need to debate, we're all the students of the same teacher, and then how to resolve this is not to talk about Nagarjuna's philosophy. This is a greatly unfortunate, because this is a treasure, this is a gem. You understand, you had a glimpse of this, you will have goosebumps on your body. Just a glimpse of this, you can see that this is what takes us to liberation. And glimpse of this, and physiologically you could feel extreme tranquility, which we never experienced before. So from this you can get a clue that, oh, liberation is possible, Buddhahood is possible. Okay, so therefore, if you try to, just for the sake of bringing them together, and then silencing Nagarjuna's philosophy, this is also not wise. So be like a mother. Mother knows everything. What the child disagrees with the mother, it doesn't matter. So the mother will continue to embrace the child. So likewise, we should, each one of us, when we say that may I become Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings, we are saying like I should become like a mother to take care of all the other sentient beings as my own children, who are like small children. So this should be the spirit. The spirit should not be like, I'm going to be another child, now reconciling with the other children, not to fight and ignoring what the treasure that you have. This is what we should not be doing. Okay, so with this in mind, just let's go through the debates, and then we come to one point, we come to one point which is from stanza 44. That is very important, but for that matter, we need a background in emptiness, so that the following stanzas, the discussions, debates will make a total benefit for us. So till stanza 43, I will just go to quickly explain this, and before stanza 44, we'll do a little bit of the explanation and emptiness and dependent origination. Okay, stanza 40. Suppose like the Hinayanis tenet holders, meaning the tenet holders of the personal liberation seeker teachings. Okay, for that matter, these distinctions are very important for all of us. So when you speak about Buddhism, we can think of two. There are so many ways of thinking about Buddhism, but when you speak about particularly these technical aspects, we need to see Buddhism in two lines. Buddhism related to the practice, and Buddhism related to the philosophy. Buddhism related to the practice, and Buddhism related to the philosophy. And these two, it's not that these two are contradictory. And I'll explain why I'm classifying this. It's not my classification. From what we are doing from there, you will come to get a very clear picture of that. Buddhism related to the practice, Buddhism related to the philosophy. Okay. For the practice, we see that there are some who are interested for personal liberation, some who are interested for Buddhahood to benefit all beings. Okay, and the Buddha taught both: how to achieve personal liberation, or how to achieve Buddhahood, how to achieve Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. So some people are more inclined towards the achieving personal liberation, practice to achieve personal liberation, and some people are inclined towards practicing to achieve liberation for all beings, or to achieve Buddhahood for all beings. Okay, how many of you can understand, they agree or understand what I'm saying now? That's very possible. The practice of Buddhism is two kinds. Yes, one for personal liberation, one for Buddhahood for all beings. Raise hands. Okay, good. If this is what you've understood, this is known as the Buddhism related to practice. Practice, there are two kinds of practice. Now, Buddhism related to the philosophy. Okay, for the time being, don't mix up the two. Later on, then you can mix by the same time, not getting confused. And for the time being, if you try to mix, you can get confused. Or second part is the Buddhism related to the philosophy. The philosophy is that the Buddha, after becoming enlightened, Buddha did not teach for 49 days. Why? Because he very clearly explained that the ontological reality, or the ultimate reality, which he found is so profound that he could hardly find anybody who can fathom the depth of this reality. And then through insistence by Indra and Brahma, the gods of the kings of the god and goddesses, then the Buddha started to give teachings in a stepwise way to get to the final philosophy of emptiness. So now we are talking about the philosophy. So the Buddha taught and gave his teachings in stepwise way in order to get to the final philosophy to liberate you. So the Buddha taught four steps to reach there. Is purely related to the philosophy. And later on, yes, of course, naturally, saying there's some scholars will be more happy with the first philosophy, not so much with the latter three, and others will be happy with the second one, not with the first and the third and fourth, and some will be with the third and not with the first two and the last one, and some will be with the fourth and not with the first three. So this is what is bound to happen, and over the period, and then with this, then their respective students will come, and the students who are following the Chittamatra teacher will be very unhappy to hear a Madhyamika saying that Madhyamika philosophy is the best. Will be very unhappy. And the Madhyamika students will be very unhappy to see that the Chittamatra philosophers, they are saying that my philosophy is the best. So that's about the philosophy. So the philosophy, they are of the 10 systems. So Buddhism pertaining to the practice, and Buddhism pertaining to the philosophical 10 systems. Philosophy or the 10 systems. So 10 systems, there are 4. Now we can say that, so pertaining to the practice, we see practice related to personal liberation, practice related to Buddhahood. And philosophy Again, we see that given that there are four, the first two are classified as the philosophy of the lesser vehicle. Philosophy of the lesser vehicle, or the tenet of the lesser vehicle. And then number 3 and number 4 are referred to as the tenet of the higher vehicle. Okay, tenet of higher vehicle, or the tenet of the Mahayana. So this Mahayana, tenet of the Mahayana tenet and a Mahayana practice are different. Don't mix up the two. Mahayana tenet and tenets and a Mahayana practice, these two are different. Okay, Mahayana practice means, may I become Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings. And anything related to that becomes a Mahayana practice. And it may not necessarily associate with the Mahayana tenet system. Mahayana tenet system meaning Chittamatra philosophy and the Madhyamika philosophy. Why these two are known as Mahayana? Because these two philosophical positions, they encompass a broad. Maha means greater, the broader reality and the deeper reality. They encompass the reality more broadly and more deeply. So these two are known as the Mahayana tenet system. So Mahayana tenet system, Mahayana tenet holder and a Mahayana practitioner, don't equate the two. Some can be Mahayana practitioner as well as Mahayana tenet holders. Some can be Mahayana practitioner but not Mahayana tenet holders. Some can be say the personal liberation seekers but holding Mahayana tenet. Some can be personal liberation seekers holding the lower vehicle tenet, lower tenet, or the lower vehicle tenet. So this is what we can say. For example, let's say that Israelis and the engineers. There are some Israelis who are Israelis as well as engineers. Some who are engineers, not Israelis, like Indian engineers, and some are not engineers, not also the Israelis, like the Indian doctors. Yeah, and so we see that this relationship is there between the two. Mahayana tenet system, Mahayana tenet holder, and a Mahayana practitioner. Okay, we're not to mix the two. Now, what is being debated here is not about the practice, it's about the philosophy between the Mahayana tenet, the philosophical tenet holders, and the Hinayana philosophy, the philosophical tenet holders. Meaning the first two of the four philosophical tenet systems, the first two verses, the next two. The first two meaning Vaibhashika, Sautrantika on the one hand. So these two are debating against the Mahayana tenet holders, referring to the Chittamatras and the Madhyamika. And then at a certain point, it's going to be debate between Prasangika and the rest of the Buddhist schools. Okay, it seems like I'm rushing through a little bit, and I can see that many of the faces are already exposed to the Buddhist philosophy. So this is you will feel very bored if I go too slow. And there are some who, for sure, they are new. Those who are new, I would highly suggest you, if possible, to go through this text once again. Now the recording is available. Okay, so for the time being, this is about the Mahayana teachings, particularly the Mahayana tenets, like the emptiness as taught by Aranyagarbhuna. And that is being debated by the Vaibhashikas in Chittamatra, who are referred to as the Hinayana tenet holders. Okay, stanza 14. Suppose like the Hinayana tenet holders, meaning Vaibhashikas and Sautrantikas, particularly Vaibhashikas, you then object, but since liberation occurs through seeing the Four Noble Truths, what is the use of seeing emptiness? So let's say they're group A and group B. Group A, particularly Vaibhashika, the tenet who represent the tenet holders of the personal liberation, let's say the lower tenet systems. Buddhist systems, Vaibhashika, arguing against the Madhyamikas or the Mahayana system holders, saying that just understand how the Buddha taught the Four Noble Truths in the first Eternal Will of Dharma. Just understand this, and then you will be liberated. Why do you need the wisdom of emptiness? So what I said earlier is that without the wisdom of emptiness, you cannot come out of the dream created by your mind. And then you continue to lose the freedom of being in the dream. And whereas the Vaibhashikas, they are saying, the lower 10 systems, Buddhist 10 system holders, they are debating against the Madhyamikas, saying that, so why do we have to see emptiness, very complicated emptiness that you taught, that you are teaching? Just follow the teachings of Buddha, the Four Noble Truths. Perfect, you can attain nirvana. So what is the use of seeing emptiness? Emptiness as explained by Aranigarjuna and the Madhyamikas. Okay. Well, that is the response. Third line. The response, because in scriptures it is proclaimed that without this path there is no enlightenment. Now, the Bodhisattva Deva is trying to convince us. In fact, all these debates, they were happening there since the time of the Aranigarjuna. And then Bodhisattva Deva is trying to give the answer in two ways. This is an extremely concise way of giving the response. One response by citing the scriptures, and the other response by giving the reasons. Two. Citing scriptures because if you continue to give reasons, they will say that this is your reason, it's not the reason given by the Buddha. And citing scriptures says that no, it's not just my personal reasons. These are actually what goes in line with the Buddha's own teachings. So scripture and the reasoning both are given. First one is the scripture. Because in scriptures it is proclaimed that without this path there is no enlightenment. So if you want the citations from the sutras, then in the sutras it very clearly indicated that in Tibetan it is Bodhisattva, which means that those with the apprehension of objective reality, there's no liberation. This is what the Buddha himself said. There are so many of such citations from the sutras. The first one. First, he was just saying that sutras are there to say that these are the without this you cannot have the liberation. That without this path there is no enlightenment. Then they would say that the sutras, these are not the real sutras. These are what you identify as sutra, but they are not the real teachings of Buddha. So they started to debate. They started to argue that the Mahayana teachings, they are not real teachings of the Buddha. Okay, so 41. Suppose you then object, but Mahayana is not established as valid. Mahayana teachings, for example, in Tibetan, we have about like 110 volumes of the direct teachings of the Buddha. These are all the direct teachings of the Buddha. Mostly, except for a few, mostly are related to the Mahayana teachings. So all these sutras, which Aranigarjuna, Bodhisattva Deva identified as the sutras, the opponents, they're saying that this is questionable, this is debatable, this is not true, these are not the real teachings of Buddha. This is the very strong debate coming from them. Suppose you then object, stanza 41, but Mahayana is not established as valid. As valid meaning as a valid teaching of the Buddha, not just valid in general sense, valid teaching of the Buddha. Then, well, that is Bodhisattva Deva's response. Well, how can your scripture be established? Okay, now tell me. Let's say that I am the advocates of the Vaibhashika, following the main teaching of the Buddha, meaning the teachings for the personal liberation, to achieve personal liberation, this group class of the teachings. And I'm the advocate of this, and they say you are the followers of the Bodhisattva Deva. And then you ask me the question, okay, what about the sutras you claim as sutras? you meaning me. The sutras which you identified as the Buddha's teachings, how can you prove that these are the real teachings of the Buddha? This is what this is a counter debate from Bodhisattva Shantideva. Well, how can your scripture be established as the real teachings of the Buddha? How? If you answer, so all these, the answers, questions in the form of dialogue debates, that is, these are all the number one, of course, rhetorically asked. At the same time, let's not forget that in those days, actual debates were happening. Well, how can your scriptures be established? If you answer, because they are established for both parties, because our sutras, meaning the sutras for personal liberation, the sutras, they're teaching for personal liberation seekers. So these sutras are the agreed upon as the Buddha's teachings by both of us, you as well as for us. We both agree that these are the sutras of the Buddha, because they are established for both parties meaning for me, those who seek personal liberation, and you, the Mahayana followers. Then well, you should accept that they were not established for you from the start. Okay, I say that so, okay, let's say the person, so all these, I will not miss to explain all the lines, because later on when you go through this, it should make sense to you. Okay, well, you should accept that they were not established for you from the start, meaning that the reasons that you have given, that the sutras that we have for the personal liberation seekers, these are the real teachings of Buddha, because this is accepted by you as well as me. This is what they say. And then Bodhisattva they were saying that that's not true. That's not true. That is arguable. That is what we're going to put in the question mark. So how? From the start. 42. Any criterion that would give confidence in them would equally apply to the Mahayana scripture too. And if you give a real good reason, if you give any good reason to say that the scriptures which you identify as the Buddha's teachings, meaning your scriptures, whatever good reason that you give is equally applicable to the Mahayana sutras. Okay, would equally apply to the Mahayana scriptures too. And if acceptance by two different parties could make something true, then the Vedas and so forth would also become true, meaning that simply because two parties, if they agree, then it is like say there was a saying that Vajrachedika Sutra, at one point in some remote place, a border between Tibet, the Tibet border, where the Buddhism flourished, Mahayana Buddhism flourished, and Vajrachedika, they were all being studied there. Not really studied, I don't know, but all being printed there. And then the printers, they come across two editions of Vajrachedika, Dhamminikata Sutra, two editions. And the prints, they don't tally the two editions. So which should we take as the authentic one? So they were confused. So what they do was that they try to gather as many samples, as many copies, and try to see majority, which of the two copies holds a majority. And then it so happened that the majority, they were with all the typos, all the mistakes were there, the majority. And there were only one which is accurate one. And the printers, they discarded the accurate one and they printed on the basis of the wrong one, because the wrong one is the majority. So this is when when the democracy can go wrong. Democracy, when the people are not educated, is very dangerous. They can just identify the wrong person there. This is how the wrong print was selected to be printed on a mass scale. It's because of the lack of education, lack of the the reasoning, lack of the knowledge. So simply because the majority, two parties agree, meaning it's not about, authenticity of the text is not to be decided on the basis of the two parties agree or majority of people agree. This is not the sensible version. So if you are to really go for, whether two parties agree, then everything is agreed by two parties. Everything is agreed. Even the Nazi was agreed by Hitler and his friend. They used to agree on the principle of the Nazi. So it doesn't mean that is authentic. This is the good. This is a good system. Okay. 43. Suppose you argue, but it is because of Mayan scriptures that are disputed. So they come up with the second point. They come up with the second point. The second point is that, but our scriptures, nobody disputes that these are the teachings of Buddha, but yours one is the one which is disputed, saying, whether this is the real teaching of Buddha, this is disputed. So therefore, that is a problem, not my sutras. 43. Suppose you argue, but it is because of Mayan scriptures that are disputed. Well, because your scriptures are disputed by non-Buddhists also. What you identified as the Buddha's teachings, they are disputed by other people. The non-Buddhists who say these are not authentic. These are not the authentic. The concepts. These are wrong concepts. So how can the Buddha teach a wrong concept? So this not agree. These are disputed by other people. By other people, simply because that's a dispute doesn't mean that is not the real teaching of the Buddha. Well, because your scriptures are disputed by non-Buddhists, and some other sections within your scriptures are disputed by yourselves and others. For example, let's say within the teachings of the Buddha, there were some minor discussions, debates happening among the Vaibhashikas. Because Vaibhashikas, keep in mind, there were 18 divisions of Vaibhashikas, which means that divisions means they don't agree with each other 100%. There are some of the points of divergence there. So on that basis, there is a debates happening amongst yourself also. And some other sections within your scriptures are disputed by yourselves and others. They would have to be discarded too. 44. Okay, now this is a very important point. We come to a very important point here. So thus far is like the debating with the Buddha's teachings, Maya teachings, whether or not they are the real teachings of the Buddha. So this is about that. Now, what is a real debate, not just a superficial, all these things. Now, at the debate with stanza 40 through to 44, no, 43, stanza 40 through to 43, that is just on the surface debate. Now going into the in-depth debate in the contents. This is so important. So this is what I meant when I said that to gain conviction in this, that to be done by two ways. One is by the example. And of course, see to yourself, each one of us, including myself, all of us, there's a tendency that what you follow, and this is no exception to anyone. What you follow, there's some kind of blind affinity there. When somebody says that, okay, this is not the only path, instantly the uneasiness comes to you. That happens to us. So these are the indications that there is the grasping there within, we should be very open-minded, very objective, and see what makes sense. What is sensible, you take it. But simply because it is, okay, I'm a Tibetan, I'm following Tibetan Buddhism, anybody who says something against the Tibetan Buddhism, no, this is my attitude, this is not the Buddha's style. This is wrong. Okay, so with this in mind, two points to keep in mind. Finally, let's not forget that for me, embracing Buddhism, embracing modern science, or whatever I embrace, somehow it should be related to two things, that I want to get rid of my suffering and I want to have the maximum happiness. Let's not forget the main goal. So in the pursuit of the main goal, we forget the main goal and then we embrace the opposite of the main goals. Right? Say the affinity to the self. Affinity to self, that happens, then that attracts the fears. Instantly the disturbance happens to us, which means that there's a fear coming to your mind. Uneasiness coming to your mind. That is a fear. So that is to be discarded. For that matter, we are studying this text. So the two things that we need is that we need a very open mind, number one. Number two, very objective in our approach. Objective doesn't mean that somebody says, oh, I'm very, very objective, then you discard that. No, right? Whatever you follow, just follow this. Meanwhile, flow, gade flow. Meanwhile, say don't easily accept, don't easily reject. Use your intelligence, experience. And for that matter, two things I shared with you. Number one is examples. Examples will greatly help you, but examples should not be the ultimate point on the basis of which you accept any concept. Examples will help you, but what actually helps you is that you get a glimpse of the experience, glimpse of the cognitive, the insight, cognitive understanding, and then on that basis, experiential confirmation. These two things happen with example, then you become very confident. On that basis, then you can feel that all the sentient beings, they're suffering all because of lack of this knowledge. And saying that I'm Buddhist, when somebody comes against Buddhism, you feel unhappy, agitated, irritated. It's not Buddhist thing. Yeah. Okay, this is not the approach to Buddha. Approach to Buddha is to get rid of fear. You went to Buddha not to attract more fear. You went to Buddha, please teach me how to get rid of my fear. Now you attract more fear because I'm embracing Buddhism. Okay. So for this matter, the point is that the two things, one is example and the example of the dream. This extremely powerful example. Then on that basis, yes, as long as I'm in the dream, generally speaking, and there could be, some people who have what is known as the lucid dream. In the dream, you are aware that you're dreaming. Very rare cases, but I say the example that I'm giving is an example where in the dream, you see the dream is real. So taking that as example, as long as you're in the dream, be it very pleasant dream, this dream is not in your hands. You don't have the freedom to continue to this dream. So lack of freedom is there. So lack of freedom. And lack of freedom is misery. That is samsara. That is what we are trying to get away from. Nobody wants lack of freedom. Okay, this is, so for that matter, how to be free from this lack of freedom is to wake up. Wake up. In what way it helps? By waking up, you realize that the dream is not real. Only then you'll be freed. Okay. The next one is to have a glimpse of emptiness. The solid, not just example, but the solid experience, cognitive assurance, supported by experiential assurance. The two. So that is required. So for that matter, the emptiness, of course, we can't expect to do emptiness within one session, within 1 hour. Now we have like 15 minutes. We can't really expect to do emptiness within 15 minutes, but this is like the key. The key, once you get a key, then your job is to open it and explore. This is what we are to do. Okay. For this emptiness, emptiness, the benefit of the experience of emptiness or the meditation emptiness is that within our, so funny, I'm happy, I'm not happy, I'm a little tense, there's a fear there, there's agitation happening, sadness there for no reason sometimes. In the winter, when the weather is very wet, foggy, and becoming dark very soon, then your mind goes into, say the sad mood, the mood of sadness, and particularly in Scandinavian countries in the winter. It's extremely the unpleasant feeling. And I don't know whether Israelis have this experience. Shala, weather cool, dark, cloudy.
Very little, as our weather is quite hot even during the winter, as you know. So we're quite happy when we have this cloudy and foggy.
Yes. Okay, that's true. But then sometimes we create this weather at home, right? They should not. It's not necessary. There should be real fog there. Fog happening at home, right? Family members, they are not in talking terms, right? We're creating this fog in the dark, right? You just even don't feel looking at other person, right? So we create this environment at home. In the Scandinavian countries, it's already there outside. And in other places, we create this at home. So there, then the mind, just the morning you wake up, you get up, the heaviness sinks in. And sometimes it's purely biological, sometimes. So this experience can be triggered through many factors. One, external, the weather. And number two is the environment at workplace, then in the family. Then number three, biological. Biological is sometimes for no reason you get there's a sadness. For no reason, there's a sadness coming in you. For no reason, heaviness, sadness. Okay, so these are all mental experiences. These are all mental experiences. Triggers can be outside, the weather, the family, workplace, or physiological constituencies. Can be for any reason, the triggers. But what is actually happening is a mental state within the mind, mental state. This is what you're experiencing. How many you agree fully, or to great extent you agree? Raise hands. Okay, if this is what we agree with, then the next question is how this wisdom of emptiness helps us. Okay, it doesn't mean that, okay, wow, that's amazing, this is exciting, wisdom of emptiness, so exciting. Okay, now if this is what I'm looking for, there's no capsule to get rid of this problem. Now there's wisdom of emptiness there. No, don't expect that. This wisdom of emptiness works on the basis of it's a long-term plan. It's not an immediate like the solution. It's a long-term plan, but this is necessary. However long a time, however long a future, one day it becomes present. This is so important that we need to have a proper planning. And the wisdom of emptiness is the solution. Okay, so with this in mind, this wisdom of emptiness, it has two sides. Just as these emotions within us, sometimes even somebody who does not otherwise, talk to other people so easily, because of some, let's say, the physiological changes within your body, for whatever reason, you just feel like talking to other people so easily. That happens. Okay, so what is triggering these mental states? Happy mental states to arise, unhappy mental states to arise. What? Okay, let's say there are two mental states there within us, and emptiness, there are two sides. One is emptiness, and other is dependent origination. And these two, emptiness and dependent origination, these two are the two sides of the same coin. These are two sides of the same coin. So when you see emptiness, when you see emptiness, all these, the feeling, and that to the real emptiness, not the nihilism, the real emptiness, all these unpleasant feelings, agitation, anger, sadness, they all dissolve. Because, say, the opposite of emptiness is seeing things as objectively real, seeing the dream as real. So when you see the dream as real meaning as objectively real, so there's something there from the object which is further away from you. So what that object is, that object plays a role in affecting you. And that object is not in my hand, it's further away from me, objectively real, from the object, not from the subject. This is what you're seeing. When you see that, loss of freedom automatically happens. So we see that all these mental agitations, sadness, and so forth, they are grounded on the belief that things are objectively real. Things are objectively real. This is what happens. So by seeing the emptiness, that ground is removed. That ground is shattered. The belief that things are objectively real, that is shattered, and all your agitation subsides. Like a poisonous tree, you cut the root, and however millions of poisonous leaves they are growing on the tree, they're all dry on their own. Likewise, all this mental agitation simply dry automatically. You could feel extremely profound tranquility within your mind, peace of mind, which we have never experienced before when you get a glimpse of emptiness. So one side, the emptiness, this helps to remove all the unpleasant feelings, the unpleasant, the emotional states, such as anger, craving, fear, anxiety, all will be subsided. Even if you are somebody who is otherwise very short-tempered, or otherwise who has a sense of, say, the craving for whatever, craving, say, you meditate, and if you get a glimpse of it, and of course the experience should be a real experience, it should not be the nihilistic experience. You get a glimpse of this instant, you can feel this, the loss of your control into the emotions stops. You'll feel it. This is so precious. That is the emptiness part. With emptiness, then all these disturbing emotions related to the mental states, like unpleasant feelings, they all subside. There's a tremendous calmness. So therefore, the nirvana is described as peace. Peace. And this peace, you try to get a glimpse of emptiness, and the peace that really, then you will know what a peace means. The real peace, you will feel that. It involves a physiological component. It involves the cognitive component. It involves the emotional component. It involves all these components there. You will really feel, you really know what a peace is. Okay, that is the emptiness side. Now the other side is the dependent origination. You see the dependent origination, then we see that all these positive emotions flow freely. Positive emotions as compassion, as joy, happiness, all these freely flow when you see the dependent origination. Because dependent origin means that my happiness is dependent on you, so I should take care of you. So taking care of you means my mind flows with you, compassion grows. And all these virtues, they grow. All the virtues, they grow on the basis of understanding the dependent origination. So in other words, within our mind, the pleasant feelings, the unpleasant feelings, all the unpleasant feelings are stopped by the wisdom of emptiness, and all these pleasant feelings are being invigorated or being proliferated by the understanding of dependent origination. So it is so important for us, and to really get the emptiness experience, we must try to explore what dependent origination is. So these two should not be treated as two separate entities. These two should be reflected upon always side by side, dependent origination and emptiness. Okay. So dependent origination, and there are three there are three levels of dependent origination. And in fact, dependent origination, the Buddha taught extensively on dependent origination. Say, the Sutra on dependent origination. Sutra on dependent origination and the Salistamba Sutra, which is Rice Seeding Sutra, is also a sutra on dependent origination. One is a short form and one is the Rice Seeding Sutra, which is more in detail. So in all of these sutras, dependent origination is greatly emphasized and taught. And the Buddha, then in the Rice Seeding Sutra, or at one point, the Buddha was dwelling. Buddha was just passing by a field, the rice field, with his the students, and then the Buddha stopped, and Buddha pointed to the rice seedlings, and said, "Monks, whosoever sees dependent origination will see the Dharma, and whosoever sees the Dharma will see the Buddha." Let me repeat it. The Buddha stopping by the rice field, Buddha said, "Monks, whosoever sees dependent origination will see the Dharma, and whosoever sees the Dharma will see the Buddha." Here, the Buddha doesn't mean you will see me. This is not what the Buddha is saying. He's saying that everyone has the seed of Buddhahood. Everyone. You see dependent origination, this will make you see the Dharma. When you see the Dharma, then your Buddhahood inside will be seen. Obscuration will be removed. The metal dirt, the soil will be removed, and the gold inside will become manifest, will be seen. This is what the Buddha is indicating. Okay, so this dependent origination, if you study this Salistamba Sutra, there you can see the dependent origination, which His Holiness the Dalai Lama he teaches us on three levels, which you can very clearly see taught by the Buddha in this Salistamba Sutra or the Rice Seeding Sutra. What are the three levels of dependent origination? Number one, dependent origination of the results, dependence on the causes, number one. Number two, dependent origination of the wholes, dependence on the parts. Whole, the house as a whole, is dependent on its parts, like the wall, the ceiling, the floor, the windows, doors, and so forth. Dependent origination of the wholes, dependence on the parts, number two. Number three, dependent origination of dependence on mere mental designation. Number one, dependent origination of the results, dependence on the causes. Number one, dependent origination of the results, dependence on the causes, number one. Number two, dependent origination of the wholes, dependence on the parts. Dependent origination of the wholes, dependence on the parts. Then number three, dependent origination of the dependence on mere mental designation. Dependent origination of dependence on mere mental designation. It is so important for us to reflect on all three. And the first one should help us to get to the second level, and the second level should help us to get to the third level. And to really understand emptiness, we have to understand the third one. In other words, to understand emptiness, we have to understand all three levels of dependent origination. The first one, dependent origination of the results, dependence of causes. This is the the causal dependent origination. In other words, cause and effect relationship. Cause-effect relationship, a part of which is law of karma. Law of karma is a part of the first level of dependent origination, the law of karma. So the cause and effect, the first level of dependent origination, which talks about cause and effect. Within that, there are two classes. One which falls under the category of the law of karma, and the other which falls under the category of the general cause and effect. So what's the difference? Some of you may be interested to know. What's the difference? Let's say that under a given situation where the heat is there and the temperature is there, the heat and the moisture and so forth, you keep a fresh flower there, just a cut of fresh flower and keep it there on the table. Then automatically it will droop. It'll droop in 2 days. It'll droop in some cases 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, it'll droop. So there's a change happening that a particular set of the environment, the temperature, the moisture, and the so forth, and the cut flower, these combined together will give rise to the next moment of losing the freshness. That's the result. So that cause and effect has nothing to do with the law of karma. It's a very natural process. For example, let's say there's a thunderstorm, and it gives up the loud noise. That's a natural cause and effect. When the two clouds collide, and they give rise to the lightning, thunderstorm, this is a natural cause and effect. What is law of karma then? What is the cause and effect in the context of law of karma? Law of karma involves, alongside the cause and effect, alongside the natural cause and effect, there is a mental intention involved. Mental intention. When the mental intention is involved, then it becomes the law of karma. The karma, this is known as the karma and its effects. Okay. In other words, the whole universe is operating on the basis of the level of dependent origin. The whole universe is operating, believe it or not. And then we, the sentient beings, the human beings, the animals, God and goddesses, all the beings, we are operating on the basis of the law of karma. We are operating on the basis of the law of karma, which is part of the web of the cause and effect. Okay, for example, let's say that let's say about like maybe 13 years ago, I was, of course, 13 years ago, I was very young. I was 13 years younger than I'm now. And each one of us, we were 13 years younger than that time. When I was narrating my story, at that time, you also exist on this earth, 13 years younger than who you are now. And which means that today's health and that time's Dorji's health, is much better, no doubt, because he was 13 years younger than me today. Younger people, they are healthier, generally speaking. Then one morning, around like, I think 4 a.m., I started to feel the pain. And the pain was not too acute, but consistent pain. And I did not have a plan to have this pain, but it happened, which means when the causes and conditions are gathered, these things happen. So we talk about health. So it happened like this. We never say that I made it like this. Which means that we are operating by the force of the karma. This is how we are operating. And the whole universe is operating on the basis of the cause and effect. And a part of which, and of course, there was overlapping of the natural cause and effect and the karmic cause and effect. Overlapping can also happen. Okay. So this is one part. The universe operating on the cause and effect. So therefore, from this, what we come to learn is that cause and effect is so efficacious. Finally, the universe is guided by the cause and effect, the set of cause and effect. And why I want the pleasant effects, I want the good effects So therefore, I have to embrace the good causes. This is what we have to know. So gaining a deep conviction in this. Say, people who are born as Buddhists or as Hindus, usually, or Jains, they have a natural tendency. There's an environmental belief. There's a societal belief. Law of karma. And whereas if somebody is intelligent, somebody is really smart, even though you are not born in such an environment, if you are very smart, if you always ask question, not just ask question, you have the ability to let's say to pick up the correct answers, the precise answers, profound answers, then you'll be left with no choice other than to see that the world is operating by the causes and effect. This is what Albert Einstein said. Einstein was very unhappy with the concept of randomness proposed by the quantum mechanics or quantum physicist. He was not happy. He said the world is governed by the cause and effect. The world is governed by the cause and effect, and there is no room for randomness. But what we can see is that the randomness that is explained in quantum mechanics and the randomness as opposed to cause and effect, there's no contradiction there. There's no contradiction. Okay, that's a different story. But the point is that Albert Einstein, he is very intelligent, extremely intelligent. He said the world is governed by cause and effect. So the point, what I'm saying is that if you are really intelligent, then it will invariably take you to understand that there's a cause and effect which is governing the world. So therefore, if I desire good results, I have to embrace the good causes. So these good causes, good results they're expecting, and the causes which have the ability to give rise to that good result, these are given the label virtues. And experience of what we dislike, unpleasant experiences, they are given rise by a set of causes conditions. These are given the label non-virtuous. So in other words, by seeing the first level of dependent origination, our conviction in following the law of karma, that should increase for your own goodness, for your own well-being, for your own immediate benefit and the long-term benefit. This is so important. Number one. Number two is the cause and effect of a dependent origination of the whole's dependence on the parts. The whole's dependence on the parts. How the whole, for example, the house, to see that I need a good house. If you need a good house, then all the parts must be good. All the parts must be good, because this good house is a whole which comes into existence by dependence on the parts. If you don't take care of the parts, then you can't expect to have a good house. And you say oh, I love my hand so much. I love my hand so much. If you love your hands, you have to know how to take care of your fingers, the palm, all these small parts. You have to know how to take care of all the small parts, because the hand is nothing, but it's a whole made of these parts. Likewise, if your country wants to be a COVID-free zone, if you want to have a COVID-free zone country, then we should think of helping the whole world to make it COVID-free zone. Because if the world as a whole, if that is not safe from the COVID, anytime the COVID can invade you, anytime somehow it will invade you. Although your country does the best thing to stop the in-flight, the flights from other countries, they ban the flights, your economy goes down. And nobody wants to see the economy going down. All the bilateral relationships, they go down. So to maintain these, you have to open your country. When you open the country, COVID comes. So if you really want to, have take care of your country, which is a part of the world, learn how to take care of the world. Because you are part of this. And the whole, depending on the parts, and the parts depending on the whole. There's mutuality of dependency. This is so important. Number 2. Then number 3 is dependent origination of dependency on the mere mental destination. How things come to being by the power of the mind. Once you understand this, that is when you understand emptiness. Okay, so we'll stop here for this session. We are left with 49 minutes now for the next session. We'll meet after 49 minutes. Om Gade Gade Paragate Parasamgate Bodhiswatyatha Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasamgate Bodhiswatyatha Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasamgate Bodhiswaha. Okay, see you again.